So, back in 1862, the French emperor, a guy named Napoleon III, sent his army to invade Mexico. Now, the story they told everyone was that they were just there to get back some money that the Mexican government owed them. But really, Napoleon III had a secret plan. We will tell you all this, but first, subscribe to our channel and press the bell notification to get regular updates. Like and share the video, so let's get started. He wanted to put a European prince, Maximilian I, on the throne in Mexico and have him act as a ruler who would do what France wanted. Leading the French soldiers was a general named Charles de Laurences. He was 48 years old and had a lot of experience fighting. He had done well in earlier wars in a place called Algeria, and also against the Russians in the Crimean War. That's where he became a general, specifically after a big fight called the Battle of Malakoff. His army marched into Mexico, and at first, things were pretty easy for them. They won battles and pushed forward without much trouble, making the Mexicans look like they couldn't defend themselves. But then the French army got to a city called Puebla. And this is where a young Mexican general, Ignacio Zaragoza, who was only 33 years old, decided that the Mexican people had had enough, and it was time to make a stand. Even though he was young, Ignacio Zaragoza wasn't new to fighting. He had been a commander for the side that wanted a more liberal government during Mexico's Reform War not too long before, and he was a key part of winning an important battle called the Battle of Calpulalpan just a couple of years earlier. So you had two generals, both with successes in their past battles. But General Laurences and the French seemed to have a big advantage. His army was much bigger than Zaragoza's, maybe even 3 times as many men. And more than that, they were French. The French army at that time was thought to be one of the very best in the whole world. They had a really strong reputation that came from the time of the first Napoleon. The soldiers were seen as very professional, and they had the newest and best weapons and technology available back then. The Mexican army, on the other hand, was seen as not very organized. People thought they didn't have much training, and their equipment wasn't great. They also had a reputation for losing, especially after the Mexican-American War some years before. But General Zaragoza and his men were about to show everyone that those ideas about the Mexican army were wrong. It was a hot day on May 5th, 1862, in the city of Puebla, which is in a drier, almost desert-like area. General Laurences saw how many more soldiers he had and thought he could easily beat the Mexicans and make them run away without risking too many of his own men. His plan was to attack a fort on a hill called Fort Guadalupe, which didn't seem to have many defenders. He would use some of his soldiers for this attack and also have his big cannons, his grand battery, firing at the fort to help. If they could take Fort Guadalupe, the French could then use the cannons inside it to shoot down at the rest of the Mexican army. This would put General Zaragoza in a terrible spot, and Laurences figured Zaragoza would have to pull his army back to save it from being destroyed. The first attack started around noon. The French cannons began firing heavily, but what the French didn't realize was that most of their cannonballs were hitting the side of the hill below the fort and just bouncing off. They weren't really hurting the fort much at all. Then the French soldiers had to march uphill over ground that was rough and full of rocks and spiky plants like agave. As they struggled to move forward, the Mexican cannons from both Fort Guadalupe and another nearby fort were firing at them from close range, really messing up their formations and causing many injuries and deaths. The French attack on Fort Guadalupe was stopped pretty easily by the determined Mexican defenders who fought bravely and caused the French a lot of losses. General Laurences' first try to win quickly didn't work, and it cost him valuable time and soldiers. He needed a new plan to win the battle fast. For his second try, Laurences decided to attack the right side of the Mexican lines. The idea was to tie up the Mexican soldiers on that side to distract them. While that was happening, the French soldiers on the left side would attack the fortress again. This second attack on the fort went a little better at first. The French soldiers managed to get up close and even put their flag on the wall of the fortress during some really intense fighting. But even though a French flag was flying briefly, the Mexican flag was still up too, and the French were forced back out of the fort again at the point of bayonets in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Meanwhile, over on the right side, where the French tried their diversion attack, the Mexican lines held strong with great courage. They didn't break and even pushed the French soldiers back there as well. Soon, the French forces were called back from both attacks. They had failed again. But even though the Mexicans had held their ground, General Zaragoza's men were really tired and had been through a lot. They were holding on, but it was tough. General Lawrences wasn't giving up though. He decided to try one last big attack using all of the soldiers he had kept in reserve. He thought this would be the final blow to Zaragoza's army. However, at this critical moment, the French discovered that their cannons had completely run out of ammunition. So this final big French attack had to go forward without any help from artillery fire. The French made a desperate push towards Fort Guadalupe, and they were met by an equally desperate defense from the Mexicans. The Mexican soldiers fought with everything they had, clinging to their lives in really brutal hand-to-hand fighting. At the same time, on the right side, the French and Mexican soldiers were shooting at each other intensely until, finally, the entire French attacking force on that side started to fall back in a confused retreat. General Zaragoza saw that the French were weakened. They were exhausted and shaken after their attacks had failed one after another, and they had lost many men. Zaragoza knew this was his chance, and he wasn't going to miss it. He gave the order for a full-on attack by the entire Mexican army. On the Mexican right side, a fierce line-against-line battle started up. On the left side, the Mexican soldiers left their defensive positions and charged downhill in a devastating attack that quickly started to push the French backward. Then, to completely finish things for General Lawrences, Zaragoza decided to order a powerful charge by his cavalry forces on both sides of the French army. The French soldiers' spirits were totally broken. The entire army under General Lawrences panicked and rushed off the battlefield in a complete retreat. General Zaragoza and his Mexican army had won a great victory. The Battle of Puebla was a clear win for the Mexicans. They didn't lose many men, with only about 227 soldiers killed or wounded. The French, though, lost a lot more, over 3 times as many soldiers. Now, this battle didn't stop the French invasion right away, and there would be more fighting in Puebla later on. But this victory was incredibly important because it greatly boosted the spirits of the Mexican people who were resisting the invaders across the country. It showed them that their young nation could indeed stand up to and defeat a powerful foreign army. Today, this battle is remembered and celebrated on the holiday known as Cinco de Mayo. This holiday is celebrated in parts of Mexico and also widely in the United States. In America, you often see people celebrating with Mexican-themed clothing and decorations, which sometimes aren't very accurate or traditional. Many people who join in these celebrations might not even know the real history behind the holiday. This brings up a question. Is celebrating in this way with clothes and items that might not be truly authentic a good way to remember the day, or does it feel disrespectful to the brave men who fought and gave their lives for their country? It's something to think about. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to help the channel grow and maybe even get a chance to suggest ideas for future videos, consider supporting me by subscribing the channel.